Namaskar, Jai Shri Krishna. Embracing text 11 and text 12 of chapter 15, the Pandavas retire timely of first canto creation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 11. Yo no ju gopa vana itya duranta krucha chrada durva saso arira chitada yutagra bhuga yaha शाकान्न शिष्टमुप युज्य यत स्त्री लोकिम तृप्ताम ममस्त सलिले विनिमग्न संघः. During our exile, Durvasa Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By his accepting food, thus the assembly of Munis, while bathing in the river, felt sumptuously fed. And all the three worlds were also satisfied. Durvasa Muni, a powerful mystic Brahman, determined to observe the principles of religion with great vows and under strict austerities. His name is associated with many historical events, and it appears that this great mystic could be both easily satisfied and easily annoyed like Lord Shiv. When he was satisfied, he could do tremendous good to the servitor, but if he was dissatisfied, he could bring about the greatest calamity. Kumari Kunti at her father's house used to minister all kinds of services to all great Brahmanas, and being satisfied with her good reception, Durvasa Muni benedicted her with a power to call any demigod she desired. It is understood that he was a plenary incarnation of Lord Shiv, and thus he could be either easily satisfied or annoyed. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiv, and by Lord Shiv's order, he accepted the priesthood of King Shvetaketu because of the king's performance of sacrifice for 100 years. Sometimes he used to visit the parliamentary assembly of the heavenly kingdom of Indradev. He could travel in space by his great mystic powers, and it is understood that he travelled a great distance through space, even up to the Vaikuntha planets beyond material space. He travelled all these long distances within 1 year during his quarrel with King Ambarish, the great devotee and emperor of the world. He had about 10,000 disciples, and wherever he visited and became a guest of the great Kshatriya kings, he used to be accompanied by a number of followers. Once he visited the house of Duryodhan, the enemy cousin of Maharaj Yudhishthir. Duryodhan was intelligent enough to satisfy the Brahman by all means, and the great Rishi wanted to give some benediction to Duryodhan. Duryodhan knew his great mystics, and he knew also that the mystic Brahman, if dissatisfied, could cause some havoc, and thus he designed to engage the Brahman to show his wrath upon his enemy cousins, the Pandavas. When the Rishi wanted to award some benediction to Duryodhan, the latter wished that he should visit the house of Maharaj Yudhishthir, who was the eldest and chief among all his cousins. But by his request, he would go to him after he had finished his meals with his queen Draupadi. Duryodhan knew that after Draupadi's dinner, it would be impossible for Maharaj Yudhishthir to receive such a large number of Brahman guests, and thus the Rishi would be annoyed and would create some trouble for his cousin Maharaj Yudhishthir. That was the plan of Duryodhan. Durvasa Muni agreed to this proposal, and he approached the king in exile according to the plan of Duryodhan after the king and Draupadi had finished their meals. On his arrival at the door of Maharaj Yudhishthir, he was at once well received, and the king requested him to finish his noontime religious rites in the river, for by that time the food foodstuff would be prepared. Durvasa Muni, along with his large number of disciples, went to take a bath in the river, and Maharaj Yudhishthir was in great anxiety about the guests. As long as Draupadi had not taken her meals, food could be served to any number of guests. But the Rishi, according to the plan of Duryodhan, reached there after Draupadi had finished her meals. When the devotees are put into difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. So Draupadi was thinking of Lord Krishna in that dangerous position, and the all-pervading Lord could at once know the dangerous position of his devotees. Therefore, the Lord at once came there on the scene and asked Draupadi to give whatever food she might have in her stock. On her being so requested by the Lord, Draupadi was sorrowful because the Supreme Lord asked her for some food and she was unable to supply it at that time. She said to the Lord that the mysterious dish which she had received from the sun god could supply any amount of food if she herself had not eaten. But on that day, she had already taken her meal, and thus they were in danger. By expressing her difficulties, she began to cry before the Lord, as only a woman would do in such a position. The Lord, however, asked Draupadi to bring up the cooking pots to see if there was any particle of foodstuff left, and on Draupadi's doing so, the Lord found some particle of vegetables sticking to the pot. The Lord at once picked it up and ate it. After doing so, the Lord asked Draupadi to call for her guests, the company of Durvasa. Bhim was sent to call them from the river. Bhim said, "Why are you delaying, sirs? Come on, the food is ready for you." But the Brahmanas, because of Lord Krishna's accepting a little particle of food, felt sumptuously fed even while they were in the water. They thought that since Maharaj Yudhishthir must have prepared many valuable dishes for them, and since they were not hungry and could not eat, the king would feel very sorry, so it was better not to go there. Thus they decided to go away. This incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic, and therefore he is known as Yogeshwara. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord, and the result will be that everyone, even a company of guests numbering 10,000, will be satisfied because of the Lord's being satisfied. That is the way of devotional service. Text 12. Yata tejasatha bhagvana yudhi shulapanir vismapitaha sa girijo astram danni jamme anne api chaham munaiva kalevarena prapto mahendra bhavane mahadasa nardham. It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God Lord Shiv and his wife, the daughter of Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiv, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me, and in addition, I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half-elevated seat. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Shri Krishna, all the demigods including Lord Shiv became pleased with Arjun. The idea is that one who is favored by Lord Shiv or any other demigod may not necessarily be favored by the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Ravan was certainly a great devotee of Lord Shiv, but he could not be saved from the wrath of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. And there are many instances like that in the histories of the Puranas. But here is an instance where we can see that Lord Shiv became pleased even in the fight with Arjun. The devotees of the Supreme Lord know how to respect the demigods, but the devotees of the demigods sometimes foolishly think that the Supreme Personality of no greater than the demigods. By such a conception, one becomes an offender and ultimately meets with the same end as Ravan and others. The instances described by Arjun during his friendly dealings with Lord Shri Krishna are instructive for all who may be convinced by the lessons that one can achieve all favors simply by pleasing the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whereas the devotees of worshippers of the demigods may achieve only partial benefits which are also perishable, just as the demigods themselves are. Another significance of the present verse is that Arjun, by the grace of the Lord Shri Krishna, was able to reach the heavenly planets even with the self-same body and was honored by the heavenly demigod Indradev being seated with him, half elevated. One can reach the heavenly planets by the pious acts recommended in the Shastras in the category of fruitive activities. And as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 9.21, when the reactions of such pious acts are spent, the enjoyer is again degraded to this earthly planet. The moon is also on the level with the heavenly planets, and only persons who have performed virtuous deeds, only performing sacrifices, giving charity and undergoing severe austerities can be allowed to enter into the heavenly planets after the duration of life of the body. Arjun was allowed to enter into the heavenly planets in the self-same body simply by the grace of the Lord, otherwise it is not possible to do so. The present attempts to enter into the heavenly planets by the modern scientists will certainly prove futile because such scientists are not on the level of Arjun. They are ordinary human beings without any assets of sacrifice, charity or austerities. The material body is influenced by the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion and ignorance. The present population is more or less influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, and the symptoms for such influence are exhibited in their becoming very lusty and greedy. Such degraded fellows can hardly approach the higher planetary systems. Above the heavenly planets, there are many other planets also, which only those who are influenced by goodness can reach. In heavenly and other planets within the universe, the inhabitants are all highly intelligent, many more times than the human beings, and they are all pious in the higher and highest mode of goodness. They are all devotees of the Lord, and although their goodness is not unadulterated, still they are known as demigods possessing the maximum amount of good qualities possible within the material world. Thank you.